Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
It's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and you're joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Today, I'm joined by Maeli Nelson. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so tell us who you are and why you do what you do.
Oh, goodness. So, interesting enough, I did grow up in a cult, a religious cult, where I was sheltered. I lived on a compound. There was about 300 people that lived on this compound. I never went outside of the compound for any reason, and I lived there until I was 11 years old. I learned how to cook and how to clean and take care of the animals and to make babies, right? That was my mission in life. That was supposed to be what I was going to be really good at. And actually, I was preordained and set up to be married at 12 years old.
Wow.
So I already knew that at 11 who I was supposed to be marrying. I watched my siblings. So I do have 22 siblings. And I watched my sisters and my brothers, already go through that path. So I watched them, how they interacted as a couple and being multiple wives or what have you, which was the type of cult that it was. And, I obviously I was a happy kid, but the pain was that I couldn't get educated. So none of the women were capable or should get an education. That was the law. And so I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to do any mathematics whatsoever. Or write. So I had zero, schooling other than like real schooling, right? And life schooling. And so my mom actually got out. We walked, and my sister and I got out with her, and we walked like 40 miles in a dirt road. And my grandpa actually picked us up, which was amazing. And from there, we landed in St. George, Utah. And I went to school for the first time at 12 years old. And that's where the story really begins. So it kind of, was a blessing in disguise in the sense that most kids, when, I have teenagers and they're constantly trying to fit in and I didn't know how to fit in. So it did kind of help me, I think, realize that it's okay to stand out and it's okay to be different because there was no changing me, right? I did have a teacher who helped me recognize that learning is something that anyone can do, and you just have to put time in and be a sponge. And so that's all I did. I stayed after school every single day, 2-3 hours every single day to figure out how to read, how to write, how to do any mathematics of any kind. And that it became a very powerful tool, was that everything that I had every single day in school came back red, everything, right? Like the teachers would write on everything, just red, right? You're like, this is wrong. What are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you? But it was so empowering as I got older, because I think or just humans in general, we feel like, oh, we have to be perfect, right? And we feel like we have to do all these things perfectly and right. And, in school, you got to get A's, you got to be, you got to get 100% on everything. And really in the real world, I don't believe that's the case. We should be failing often and we should be failing forward. And so my mantra, right, is fail fast and fail often, because then you're growing and you're moving perspectively forward. And so that was probably where my, just kind of hit that threshold of, okay, who am I? What can I do with this knowledge? And what should I do? Because there are hundreds of women that are, I've met so many women who have been maybe not in a cult, but kind of in the sense of maybe they grew up in a really terrible situation where, being abused or sex trafficked or whatever it might be. And then transitioning into the real world is horrifying, right? It's debilitating, because who am I? What is my self-worth? I'm no one should trust me. My relationship with money is nothing, like there's so many like points that, so I felt inspired to obviously be like, no, I can be a voice because I'm not going to be like my other siblings. Unfortunately, I did have a sister pass away, one of them that got out. She turned to drugs, as most people do, right? When you're in a really horrific situation and you're dealt with trauma or you're trying to cope with reality, that's a very easy thing to do. And so anyway, I want to be a voice for all women that you can choose the right path.
What brought you from, obviously quite the journey that you've experienced, and thank you for being raw and vulnerable and sharing. What brought you from that into kind of leaning into real estate? Because that's quite a transition. And I think that that may or may not be somewhat unique as well, because you could have gone and done, in essence, anything. But what brought you in that direction?
So actually at 16, I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it really resonated with me being like, ooh, I want to be a business owner. I don't want people to tell me what to do. And that's because of my past, right? So everyone telling me I can't do anything. You can't. And so the moment I felt empowered to, I can do anything I want, right? You're right. I went, wait a second, I got to be a business owner. Like I can't have people tell me what to do. So I have actually owned multiple different types of businesses. I owned wellness centers, solar companies, alarm companies. I've actually kind of owned multiple different types, but I actually I owned a solar company in California 7 years ago, and it was very successful. It was thriving. We were crushing. And my job was to teach people how to knock doors, essentially. And I was knocking these doors, and I was training one day, and I was knocking on a door. I stepped off their curb rung, like on their step, and my back seized up, my left leg seized up, and I went, like my whole body just went, there's something wrong, right? I laid on the ground. My ex-husband came by, he picked me up. From that moment on, I was in a wheelchair for 9 months.
Wow.
So it was a huge wake-up call that at any moment, your life can change, right? You can be in a car accident, you can wake up with an aneurysm or whatever. Like you don't necessarily have tomorrow. So you better live right now as though, right? Like this is it, do or die. And so during those 9 months, I was the income earner. I had retired my husband so he could stay home with the kids. And so we actually ended up losing everything. I foreclosed on my house. My relationship money wasn't actually great, believe it or not, and we can dive into that in a minute. But I had a different understanding then than I definitely have now. And those 9 months, I just kept thinking, why me, right? I was the pity pot. I was really in that, I'm a failure. I was depressed. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me and all the work that I'd put in to get to where I was, and I was losing everything. So we ended up moving back to Utah into my grandparents' basement with nothing, right? Just suitcases, essentially. And I saw a sign on the road. This is kind of, a sign on the road that said real estate investor seeks trainee, and had a chicken scratch handwriting sign. And I was like, I got nothing to lose. But I thought in my mind, at least everything that I had learned up until that time, that you had to basically make good money, save it, and then once you have enough of a savings account, you can go out and then buy multifamily or rentals. But actually, that's not the case. And so, this is where my story begins. I did get my surgery, so I'm fine. I can walk now. Life is great. But I used up all of our savings, and that's why we foreclosed on everything. We lost everything is because of that actual experience with the back. But it was everything happens for a reason, right? Like all things do. Because that's my big thing, right? Like I can't let my kids go through what I went through. Not having lights on, not having power. Because my mom, unfortunately, so because she got out of the coal, she was still so damaged in the way that her belief system was, right? And that's really actually what contrast brings clarity. And so watching my mom and how she developed as a human and as a woman in the real world was very eye-opening. And I just knew, oh, perfect. I just don't want that. So I'll do the opposite thing.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you wherever you're at, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717 0001.
And this segues right into really money memories, right? Like, what is that money memory that you experienced that initially, that you leaned into thinking that that was, what it was, from something you experienced from childhood or younger that helped kind of mold your relationship to money as an adult?
Yeah, I actually have two experiences. So I didn't know this, and this was my first actual recognized realization that money does matter. It totally matters, and not the way maybe we think it does, because I do think like knowledge and relationships is more powerful, right? When it comes to actually doing anything, money's kind of last on the list of like how important it is in life. But nevertheless, it is very important. Your relationship with money definitely matters. And I was running my practice, one of my wellness centers, and at the end of the year, we were looking at books, and they're like, "You're losing money." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I have money in the checking account. I'm fine." They're like, no, you're losing money. Like, you're not charging what you're supposed to be. You're not receiving. And I went, "What are you talking about?" And then they went back through books, and I was giving so much value away for free, just constantly. I would just constantly be doing just freebies because I felt so like I needed to help these people. Right. And this lady was so wonderful. She actually says to me, she was my accountant, and she goes, "I think you have a really bad relationship with money. You don't know how to receive." And of course, I'm like, "No, right? You're fine. Like, I don't need any help." She did. She actually set me up with a lady who hypnotized me, and she brought me back to my first memory that I had, where my memory pivoted, where I had turned, where it created this belief system that's not correct, right? That money is evil.
Oh.
And this first experience, she had me take me back to when I was like 14 years old. We were at the gas station, and we ran out of gas. So again, my mom was super poor. She couldn't hold a job because she's mentally disabled, right? She really was brainwashed hardcore. And so to get out and to try and be in a different civilization was very difficult for her. And so anyway, we're at the gas station. We broke down. My mom's asking for money, like $5, I think, to fill up our gas tank. And this lady, I remember it so now, right? I didn't remember it then, but now I remember it so vividly. She had pearls on, she had her hair all done up, right? She looked fabulous. And my mom asked if, "Hey, we broke down. My daughter and I are just trying to get to, where we were going. Do you have $5 to spare for gas?" And she looked at me, not my mom, looked at me and goes, "I do not give money to poverty children." That's what she said. What a random thing to say. But for whatever reason, and it's not true, and she probably had a bad day. Who knows what was really going on, right? But, or maybe she didn't even hear my mom correctly. Like, who knows the scenario? But in my mind, I created a story that said, if you have wealth and you look like wealth, then you're a terrible person. Then you're evil, right? You don't help people. You hurt people. And evidently, I created that story so, in depth within the rest of my life that I thought, oh, I can't receive. I just need to keep giving. That's how I'm going to show people that I care, is I'm just going to give. Well, as you probably know, better than a lot of people with all the stories and the wonderful podcasts that you have on, that's not the case, right? You have to receive in order to actually give. Like, you have to receive.
That's fascinating because your story, I've heard that several times, right? Talking to folks of whatever that psychological switch was when they were younger, and again, like you had said, who knows really, like, that was your truth though in that moment. And that's what you kind of built your story around.
Yeah.
How did you change the narrative on that? Like, when did you really realize that saying, hey, that maybe happened, that maybe didn't happen that way, but I'm not going to be that person moving forward?
Yeah. I actually just got the cold chills just thinking, like, oh yeah, I remember this so well. Really, I think it was my husband. So my ex-husband said to me, "So Maeli, I need you to say to yourself every time you want to give something away for free, I want you to think that you're taking food off the table from your children. Every time. I want you to think, like, imagine yourself like, oh, I can't feed my kids. Like, I'm giving this away, so I actually can't receive and feed my children." And that's a silly, maybe perspective, but it totally worked. Like from that moment, I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, and then it was this healthy relationship that started trickling in too, which I started creating that pattern interrupt, right? And then as I created that pattern interrupt, I recognized that people valued my time more and they valued me more by receiving. And I became more of an authority figure to them. So it was a good pattern behavior that changed. And so it actually kind of felt easy once I recognized it. The key is just to know though, because I want to say that there are, thousands of people just walking around with really, really terrible money behaviors that they just don't even know exist.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a good point too. So it's not, for me, it's really kind of finding that balance of whatever that looks like, right? Not that you're not giving, not that you're not charitable, not that you don't want to, still give out into the universe, but knowing that there's a balance there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we do, right? I mean, I love charity and, our cause and what we do. Like I actually own multiple disabled young adult homes and then sober living homes, like host homes. And, that's where the investing becomes really exciting, right? Is that I get to be able to provide these homes, own these facilities, but then obviously give back to these women that are, in dire need. And it is beautiful, but I also don't need to, give away everything, right?
So one other thing we like to talk through on this podcast is financial infidelities. Whether that's something that you've experienced personally or it's something that you've witnessed in your journey that you think others could learn from. What are you open to sharing there?
Yeah, I would say that, unfortunately, most of the world lives in a very scarcity mindset. I do. I think that is where most people live. And I personally choose to live in a very much abundant mindset. So I don't want to feel competition for any reason as far as like I want to give away my secrets. I'm constantly like I have a little mantra that the secret to success is by not keeping success a secret. Like, that's it. Like that's my little mantra. And there's a ton of, there. And I think that at the end of the day, there are so many people that hoarder, right? Just they feel like, oh, I can't give any secrets away because they'll go out and do the same thing. Wow. Okay. There's plenty. How many houses have you passed or how many businesses have you passed since you drove on the way here while you're listening to this podcast, right? Obviously, there's an abundance out there. So my first actual business that I ever was in, I was a massage therapist. So I was working with a gentleman at his clinic. And then I found a product that didn't really exist in Utah. And I brought it to him and I was like, I got this business plan. I'm going to do this cool nutritional program, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? He was super excited about it. And he kind of helped me at least facilitate it in the way, like, let me use his facility. Let me use the brand of his business and things like that to keep going. Well, it blew up. Like it was a crazy big business. And about 6 months into it, he just decided, well, actually, I think it was his wife, but that's a whole different story. So I walk into the office, they closed the door. They locked the door, my office, they locked the door, my computer, everything that was in there, gone. Sorry, you don't work here anymore. That's my business. Like I created that. Like, what are you talking about? And honestly, I think it was just, they were scared that I was taking over. Like I was becoming a bigger deal than maybe their practice needed to be or wanted to be, and so I asked the doctor, like, so what is the reason you shut me out? Like, I need all my files. I need my business. Like, that's not fair. We had an agreement. But he's like, I'm sorry. Something you need to learn in life is that you need things in writing and you need to be more aware of your surroundings. And that's what he told me. Now, I was 20 years old. I was super young and it wasn't in writing and, all of those things. So it did teach me a valuable lesson, right? Like, oh, you should probably make sure you're partnering up with people that are not going to do that. And really, actually look at their background and who they are and what they're going to do, but have stuff in writing because it happens, right? You can lose. I mean, I've lost money a lot, actually. I've lost money. And it's because mistakes that I've made along the way are just super little tiny things that'll just sneak in. You're like, I should have known, right? Anyway, that's very, I think, helpful is to recognize you do need stuff in writing. Right.
Yeah.
Contracts keep people friends. I don't care who you are.
And on chalking that up to learning experiences, right? When you were younger, navigating through and like you had said, failing, right? Failing is a thing. It happens, but it helps you better the next time around.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. And as we wrap up our conversation, one thing I like to ask is, what are tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money in your own household?
Ooh, yes. So my kids, Mom, you're so wealthy, right? I get this from their friends or whatever, and they'll come over and go, "Are you rich? You're rich." Or Cash, my son, will be like, "Mom, we're rich, huh?" The first time this happened, I go, I might be wealthy or, rich, if that's what you're saying, but you're not, right? Like, you're not. So something that we try and integrate in our household with my kids is that you're not, right? You're not wealthy. You can have a wealthy mindset and you can have a wealthy knowledge perspective. And they run circles around most people when it comes to finances, right? But doesn't change the fact that you're not wealthy. And so I don't give them anything outside of what they earn. I'm a stickler, to be honest. And that's just because I had to earn everything that I ever wanted. And I think it was a good thing. I don't think it was a disjustice in any way. I don't regret the hard work that I put in. It made me appreciate everything that I have. Whereas I see a lot of kids where it's like they have, well-off parents. So they have all the shoes and all the cool kid stuff. And I don't think they appreciate it. I just don't. And so in our household, it's very much, well, did you earn it? If you did, perfect. Let's go get it. Like, I'm all about it. And I will let them earn as much money as they possibly want. Like, I'm all about it. Like, I want to be able to be a resource for them and help them. But at the same time, I'm not doing it for you. Like, you get to go to figure out the business and how to earn money and save money, right? Like, that's the other part of it. We do in our household, ask that the kids give 10% of what they make every year to some type of charitable cause as well. That's kind of a rule in our household. But
no, that's good. And creating good members of society, right? Like, I feel like with kids, right? You want kids to do better than we did. You want to be able to help give them the tools, but you want them to launch and fly and do better than we did and, work and enjoy it and make a difference and be a fantastic member of society.
100%. And that's it. Like, I don't know. My hope is, the reason why I got into real estate is so that I could provide a generational wealth, right? I know my kids will never have to suffer a day in their life. That's amazing, right? But at the same time, I want to teach them how to run these companies. I want to teach them how to do all that. But they have to choose into that. That's something I'm going to force them to do. And if they don't want these rentals, they don't have to have the rentals. But at the end of the day, like, they have to want to earn the right to have those too. It's not just a given right. But I hope the goal, and so far I think it's working. We'll see. Yeah, check back in. But the goal is for them to not have to worry about if the lights are going to get turned off, right? Or gas to get down to the business meeting that they need to go to, or the car that they have to drive. I want all of those kind of things that hold us back in life, right? That they're the material things. It's like, oh, if I just had this, then I could do this. No, I want to remove all the excuses possible so that they can go change the world. Save world hunger, right? Save the problem. We don't have enough drinking water. Fix that. How about, we need kids to actually fix what's going on. Not.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And all of you listening, thanks for spending some time with us as well. And hopefully we'll see you on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.